gonna get my back blown out in peace. You think I got time to talk about a divorce that's a year old?
You won't believe the emotional storm that's been sweeping across social media ever since Teyana Taylor dropped her new song. From the very first time she previewed it, you could almost feel the ache in her voice, the heaviness she's been carrying in her heart. It wasn't just a song, it was a confession that she'd been holding back maybe for too long. And when she finally let those words pour out, it was like a dam breaking. Fans immediately knew who she was talking about. Even though she never said Aaron's name out loud, every line pointed straight at him. You could almost hear the collective gasp from people who'd been watching their relationship unfold in the headlines. For months, everyone thought Teyana was finally moving on, finally catching her breath after the roller coaster with him on. She'd been spotted with Aaron at parties, walking hand in hand, laughing like someone who'd found a new reason to hope. There were pictures of them at quiet dinners, little glimpses of soft moments that seemed to prove she was healing. But behind those snapshots was a very different story, one she was too exhausted to keep hiding. And this song, with every haunting note, laid that story bare for the world to see. It all started when Teyana went live on Instagram late one evening. She sat there in a simple hoodie, no makeup, just raw and unfiltered, the way she knew her real supporters would understand. She told them she'd been working on something that felt bigger than music, something she needed to get off her chest before it swallowed her whole. Then she pressed play on a rough recording that had her voice trembling over a soft piano. The chat exploded instantly. Everyone could tell this wasn't just another single. This was her truth. The lyrics were almost too intimate, almost like reading pages from her diary she never meant for strangers to see. She sang about loving someone who made her feel invisible, about nights she lay awake, waiting for him to show up, knowing deep down he never would, about the way he'd hold her hand in public but let go when things got too real behind closed doors. It was a story a lot of people recognized, that kind of quiet heartbreak that doesn't make headlines but leaves scars all the same. And while she never said Aaron's name, she didn't have to. The clues were all there, strung together like little beads of pain. There was one lyric that sent everyone into a frenzy. She sang, "I gave you all my light, you stayed in the dark." It sounded like she was talking directly to Aaron, the man who once said in an interview that he wasn't sure he was ready for everything that came with her life. People remembered how he'd called their love too much, when rumors first started that he wasn't stepping up. When that line hit, the comments were full of heartbreak emojis, people saying they'd been there too, loving someone who never even tried to meet them halfway. As the song played on, she let the words get sharper, less forgiving. She sang about a man who watched her drown and called it love, about someone who promised forever but couldn't even manage to show up for the moments that mattered. The raw honesty made people uncomfortable in the best way. It was like watching someone finally stop pretending everything was okay and admit that it never was. When she ended the live stream, there was a kind of stunned silence online. It didn't take long for clips to start circulating everywhere. People were sharing screen recordings, posting the lyrics on Twitter, and tagging Aaron's account over and over. Some were angry on Teyana's behalf. Some were sad. But everyone agreed on one thing: she was done hiding. Insiders started talking almost immediately. One person who claims to be close to her said she'd been working on this song for months, but kept second-guessing whether she should ever release it. They said she was scared it would look petty, scared it would make things worse. But in the end, she decided she needed to put it out, if only to let herself breathe again. Another friend said Teyana had been sitting on these feelings for so long it was making her sick, and that finally recording the track felt like ripping off a bandage. When you listen to the full version, you can hear how deliberate every word is. She doesn't spare herself either. She talks about how she ignored red flags, how she convinced herself he would change, how she stayed even when she knew it was breaking her. That's what makes the song so powerful. It isn't just an attack. It's a confession of her own regret, her own disappointment in herself. She sings, "I thought loving you could heal me, but you were the wound I kept reopening." After the song leaked, Aaron stayed silent. Not a single tweet. Not even a vague post about protecting his peace. People started speculating that he was too embarrassed to respond, or maybe he was hoping the story would blow over if he just ignored it. But the silence only made the whole thing more suspicious. If he really had nothing to hide, why not speak up? Why not defend himself? The longer he stayed quiet, the more convinced people became that Teyana was telling the truth. Meanwhile, Teyana didn't say much more either. She posted one message on her Instagram story. "When you finally tell your side, they call it drama." That was it. No more explanations, no more apologies. Just one sentence that said everything. You could feel how tired she was of pretending, how ready she was to let people see her bruises and not care who judged. And then there were the fans. They rallied around her in a way that felt almost protective. They started hashtags like #ICriedWithTeyana and #NeverShowedUp. They shared their own stories of loving people who didn't know how to love them back. They thanked her for putting words to feelings they'd never been able to articulate. For a few days, it felt like the internet was collectively holding its breath, trying to process the reality behind all those glossy photos and red carpet appearances. Music critics weighed in too. Some called the song one of the rawest breakup ballads of the year. Others said it was a risky move, airing private pain in such a public way. But the consensus was clear. Teyana had taken back the narrative. She was no longer the woman quietly suffering behind someone else's shadow. She was standing in her own light, no matter how messy it looked. But the part that made the biggest impact was how she refused to pretend this was just about Aaron. In interviews, she hinted that this was about more than one relationship. It was about a lifetime of feeling overlooked, about always being the one to try harder, love deeper, and end up emptier. The song became an anthem for anyone who'd ever poured themselves into someone who couldn't be bothered to meet them at the door. People started rewatching old videos of her and Aaron, looking for signs. They dissected every glance, every awkward moment, every time he looked away when she reached for his hand. It was like the truth had always been there, waiting for someone to shine a light on it. And when she finally did, nobody could pretend it wasn't real anymore. Aaron's friends reportedly tried to do damage control behind the scenes. One source claimed he was devastated by the backlash and felt blindsided by how direct the song was. Another said he understood why she was hurt but felt she was exaggerating. But those half-whispers did nothing to change the fact that Teyana had spoken her truth, and people believed her. In the days following the release of her new song, there was a noticeable shift in how Teyana showed up in public. She wasn't plastering on fake smiles or pretending like everything was perfect. No, if anything, her face still carried the weight of sadness, the kind that lingers even when you're trying to move forward. But something was different in her eyes, a flicker of something raw and real. It was like she'd finally given herself permission to stop hiding behind the polished celebrity image. Like she was finally allowing herself to be honest, vulnerable, and unapologetically human in a world that often demands perfection. Fans quickly picked up on this new energy, flooding her social media with waves of love and support. Her comment sections turned into safe spaces filled with messages of solidarity. People shared their own heartbreak stories, thanking her for speaking out and showing the messy, complicated side of love that everyone experiences but few dare to show. They called her brave, authentic, and relatable, a rare breath of fresh air in a sea of curated perfection. For every person who tried to label her messy or too emotional, there were dozens more who praised her courage and thanked her for being real. That's what makes this moment so magnetic. It's not just another celebrity breakup or tabloid fodder. It's about the guts it takes to confront someone who hurt you, to say, "You hurt me," out loud. And then, just as hard, to admit to yourself, "I let you." It's about choosing honesty over image, truth over silence, and self-respect over keeping up appearances. In an era where stars often stay silent to protect their brands, Teyana's choice to bare her soul is both shocking and inspiring. As the song continues to climb the streaming charts and dominate playlists, the conversation around it only grows louder. People are debating whether her raw honesty was too much or exactly what we all need to hear. Rumors swirl about how Aaron might respond. Will he release a statement or even drop a song of his own? Whatever he does, the impact is already undeniable. Teyana has proven that no matter how famous or untouchable someone seems, heartbreak is universal. It can shatter you, and healing from it takes the kind of bravery few ever see. If you're watching this right now and you've ever loved someone who made you feel like you were asking for too much, just by wanting to be truly seen and valued, you're definitely not alone. Maybe you stayed longer than you should have, holding on to hope that they'd finally show up in the way you needed them to. But guess what? That doesn't make you weak. Makes you human. And maybe that's exactly why Teyana's song hits so hard. Because it calls out a truth many of us feel but rarely say out loud. Love without presence isn't love at all. It's just an echo, a shadow of what you hoped it might have been. So as you sit with this story, I want you to ask yourself something real. Who in your life have you been waiting for? Who are you hoping will finally show up and give you what you deserve? And more importantly, what would happen if you stopped waiting for them and started showing up for yourself instead? Imagine the power in that. The freedom. Peace. If this video hits home, if you've ever been caught in that same painful place, drop a comment below and share your story. Let's keep this conversation alive because sometimes the only way through heartbreak is knowing you're not alone. We get stronger together. And hey, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss any updates on Teyana's journey or whatever drama unfolds next with Aaron. Because if there's one thing this story reminds us, it's this. You deserve love that shows up every single day.